What's up, everybody, and welcome to episode 168 of the Stand Up Guys podcast. I'm your host, the incomparable Zach Jones, joined as always by the Ninth Wonder, Chocolate Thunder. They call him the Pie Man, so you better watch your hymen. The Cherry Bustin', Barely Legal Lustin'. He's never made a wrong call. If there's grass on the field, play ball. The phenomenal AJ Singh.
What's up, everyone?
So this episode, AJ, we will be reviewing episode 5 of season 2 of Loki. But real quick off the top, I will say they just today put out a trailer for the Echo series.
Man, I'm not even interested in watching the trailer for that show.
I will say I didn't think the trailer was bad.
Okay.
I thought it was okay.
All right.
Now, do I have confidence that that'll be a good show? Not at all.
Yeah, the trailer shows the best.
That's true. It focused a lot on Kingpin meeting her when she's like a little girl, and kind of their relationship. But they did confirm, I think it comes out January 10th, so next year. And but they did confirm they are gonna. It says all episodes streaming on that day, so it does seem like they're gonna drop it all at once, which isn't always. I mean, people are speculating maybe it's because they don't have a lot of faith in it,
Right.
And maybe one bad week of press is better than several, but I don't know. We'll have to see. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, we'll check it out.
Just like with the Marvels that comes out. Actually, that's coming out pretty soon, isn't it? The Marvels.
Yeah.
So, hopefully, I don't think the Marvels is going to be terrible. I think it's just going to be another one of those Marvel movies that we watch, and it's like, yep, that was another
yeah, it's going to be mediocre,
middle shelf Marvel.
Yeah.
Though people have been hard on Marvel lately because it's hard to nothing comes close to that Avengers Endgame type of thing. But I will say I've revisited a couple of the Phase 4 movies like Shang-Chi, and I even revisited the Eternals a few weeks ago, and they're not bad. I think,
Shang-Chi's good. I like Shang-Chi,
and even the Eternals. I know a lot of people didn't like that movie. I think it has one plot point that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But other than that, I don't know. I thought it was decent.
Yeah, Eternals is okay.
I thought it was decent. I thought it had some interesting swings in it anyways.
Yeah.
Okay, AJ, let's get into this episode now. Any off-the-top thoughts on this episode before we get into it?
It was good. I liked it. That's pretty much all I'll say. Yeah,
yeah I liked it too. It does make me these Marvel shows. I got to say, every time we're one episode to go, I'm like, man, are they going to be able to bring this around in a satisfying way?
Right.
And because it does seem, I don't know. We'll get to it, but I'm it seems like there's a lot of things they got to do in that final episode, but we'll see. So yeah, anyone who hasn't watched or listened to our reviews before, we actually do a deep dive, scene by scene breakdown, and we'll commentate as we go. So AJ, episode 5, entitled Science/Fiction.
Yeah.
So as you remember, the big cliffhanger at the end of the last episode was it looked like the loom exploded and killed everybody.
Yeah.
So here we get the bright light from the loom, exploding, but Loki wakes up, opens his eyes to discover that he's alone in that room, the loom room, I guess you would call it. So it's where did everybody else go? So he ends up walking through the halls of the TVA, and on the loudspeaker, there's a recording that says failsafe mode has been activated. And then Loki starts time slipping again. So Loki time slips, and he appears in a room where he sees another version of himself reading a book, the TVA guidebook. He says hello, but then he time slips and disappears again before his other self sees him, So he goes back into a hallway, and he instantly time slips again into that room again, only he's alone. And he picks up the TVA guidebook and starts looking through it. And basically, he just becomes that future version of himself we just saw. And then his past self shows up and says hello, and he turns his head. Which, it's one of those things with these time things where, like, as soon as, like, he disappeared the first time, I'm like, well, they're going to call that back later on in the episode. I didn't expect him to necessarily do it that quickly.
Right.
But, so the room begins to, like, spaghetti out, kind of how, like, they destroyed Victor Timely at the end of the last episode, where everything just, like, starts turning into spaghetti and, like, dissolving. And then the last thing, as that room's spaghettiing out, they show a screen where it says, like, the fail-safe mode activated, and it has a picture of Miss Minutes. So, like, I think we're meant to believe that Miss Minutes activated that mode, or maybe has something to do with what's going on. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure about
if that was the implication or not. Okay, so now we go to a group of men attempting to break out of a prison on a branch timeline in San Francisco circa 1962. Loki appears, and so one of these men is Casey. I'll be honest, I didn't realize that for a minute because that scene is shot very darkly.
Yeah, I couldn't tell for a while.
I couldn't tell for a while either until they started talking. So Loki, the prison is actually Alcatraz, and so they break out, and they're, like, on the shore, and they have this, like, makeshift raft put together. And so Loki time slips, he appears, and he confronts Casey, who is one of the men. Casey and the other prisoners say that his name is Frank, not Casey, and he says that he doesn't know Loki. And then, so Loki time slips again, and he's going to do it a couple times very quickly. So first he time slips and jumps in front of a McDonald's that we assume is the McDonald's we saw before in Sylvie's timeline. He jumps again in front of a place called Piranha Power Sports that sells jet skis. So, like, I mean, right away I'm, assuming that's got to do with Mobius, since they already, this whole series have made that whole jet ski connection to him. And then, and they don't really call this one back. He jumps to this room, that has, like, I want to say has, like, the number 25 in the background, and, like, this, like,
it was a theater room, time theater room, I believe.
Oh, is that what it is? And there's, like, an orange ball in the middle?
Yeah, that's where he saw, like, his own history. Like, that's where he changed, kind of.
Okay, yeah. I was like, what is that room supposed to be? Okay. So that's where, like, he viewed, like, all those, like, videos of his other self. Okay. So then we move to another branch timeline, this time 2012 New York City, where we find out that B-15 is a doctor treating a little girl. Loki briefly time slips and appears and kind of freaks her out, like, in her back, like, office room or whatever. So he time slips again. So now we're in Cleveland, Ohio in 2022, where Mobius, we find out, is a man named, his real name is Don, and he sells jet skis at that Piranha Power Sports place. Loki appears, but Mobius, just like Casey, does not recognize him. We do find out that Mobius is a single dad with 2 sons. And then he time slips again. So now we move to Pasadena, California in 1994, where OB is a sci-fi author trying to buy his own book at a bookstore. And so we find out that, he's an author, but apparently not successful. And he does this thing where he, like, sneaks his own books onto the, like, bookshelf at the store. Yeah.
He bought, like, 3 copies of his own books, I think, so far.
But what would that really do for him?
I don't know.
Show that his book is selling so that they would then hopefully buy more copies or something like that?
I would think so, yeah. Get more copies in the store.
But anyway, OB goes to his, he's got, like, this big workshop, and Loki time slips and appears there. So they kind of skip over, but Loki tells them the whole story. And so OB does say he does believe Loki. We find out that OB teaches theoretical physics at Caltech. And we find out that OB really does want to be a full-time writer. Loki wants to go back in time before the loom blew up. And OB says that it might be possible, but he's got to learn to control his time slipping. Loki says it's completely random, but OB says it's not because he keeps on visiting the people that he wants to see. OB also says that his slipping is evolving because he not only moves through time, but he moves through space as well. But my thing is that really evolving? Because wouldn't he have been doing that from the first episode he was time slipping? Was he just going always like...
That's true. He stayed in the TVA the whole time. Well, yeah, he stayed in the TVA the whole time, though. So he didn't really, like, move. Now he's moving from, like, different worlds, I guess.
Oh.
Or, like, a different Earth, anyway.
It seemed like even, like, the TVA one, like, he was at least slipping, like, into different rooms within the TVA.
Yeah.
So... I don't know.
That's true.
He would have been going through space to a certain extent. So OB says science. He has this whole conversation about, like, you know, maybe science can you know, help solve this problem, or maybe fiction is the key. So he says that science is about the what and the where. But fiction is about the why. So why does Loki want to fix the loom? Loki says if he doesn't, then they won't be able to stop what's coming. Now, question. If he doesn't stop the loom, I would just think that would be the end of everything.
That's what I thought, too.
He's like, stop what's coming. Like, if the loom is completely destroyed, isn't that just the end of existence?
That's what should have happened just now. Like, by end of episode 4, I thought everything should have been gone. But I mean, we knew there was going to be more, but that should have been what was happening.
I mean, I guess he time slipped, you know, as it was exploding or something, and that's how they're...
How would he have time slipped? He was already fixed from that.
That's true. Why? What would have caused him to start time slipping again, besides the plot necessity
Exactly.
for him to time slip?
Just to let you know, I just placed a $365 bet and won $731.
Oh my God! Who'd you bet on?
A table tennis player.
Table tennis.
Christoph Nemec, and it went down to the wire. It went down to the 5th set, the last set, and it went down to overtime. Oh, I'm done with that now.
Good God. So table tennis is where the money is. I just always bet on the Korean guy.
Actually, I did recently bet on some Asian table tennis players, and those guys are serious, man.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you can watch their games and there's crowds there. It is fun, man. They're really good. They're better than these, like, European guys by far.
It's insane when they get, like, really far from the table.
Oh, my God.
And they're just, like, going back and forth, but they're, like, way out.
Yeah, man. I mean... I've seen some, like, in the Olympics. Yeah. I've seen some crazy, like, guys, like, just it looks like the ball is just on a wire, like on a dart, like something like that. They just get it there every time. It's so weird.
Crazy hand-eye coordination.
Yeah.
So OB says if he knows the why of why he's doing this, then he should be able to control his time slipping. So he tells him to focus on the why when he time slips. So Loki tries this, but nothing happens. Nothing happens. They have this whole montage where he keeps trying, but it's not happening. OB tries shocking Loki with like a taser.
Yeah.
Also tries just like scaring him to see if he can get a reaction that makes him time slip. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't work. So Loki says, okay, well, maybe science, can get the job done. So he asks how science can get him to a place that doesn't exist. Obi says maybe it does exist since Loki time traveled in a place around the TVA. So I guess that was that theater room that you were talking about. Obi says maybe Loki just doesn't know where to look. So Obi theorizes that if Loki collects all of his friends, that their collective temporal aura can get them back where he needs to be. This is another thing where I'm just like, okay, they're putting in a bunch of temporal aura nonsense.
Well, no, because we knew about that. We knew that they needed Victor Timely's. But I mean...
But I thought it was kind of nonsense then, too.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
It's just, I don't know. It's fine, but...
Yeah, I mean, temporal aura, is that like saying soul or something? Like, I don't know what that exactly means. Even.
Well, that's the thing. It's one of those abstract things where it's like, what does that really mean?
Right, yeah.
But I guess what they're saying is like they would have all had some sort of mystic timestamp because they were all in that room together when the loom exploded or whatever. So OB says they would still need a temp pad that Loki told him about, which could take a lifetime to build. So Loki gives him a copy of the TVA guidebook. So Loki ends up time slipping to Mobius's house. And he tries to explain things to Mobius, but Mobius, of course, doesn't believe him, thinks he's crazy. But then OB shows up through a time door. And it says it took him 19 months to build the temp pad with the help of the TVA guy.
Yeah, he came like immediately out of that time door, like right after Loki slipped.
Which, I mean, with the whole time travel thing, fine. But the other thing is,
how did he know where to go?
I mean, that's a good point because... for Loki, the time slipping was relatively random. And it's not like, I mean, I guess they did like, kind of like, didn't show explicitly where like Loki was like telling him everything that happened. So maybe Loki's just very detailed in his storytelling. Okay, then I went to this year in this exact location and met this guy.
Could be.
And he's like, okay, I got to go to these places and I'll find him.
Good thing Obi can is a genius just by
Well, that's the other thing. So he has the help of this TVA guidebook, but I'm like, I don't know what
the technology to do.
That's the thing. I don't know what like those temp pads are made out of, but he was able to construct whatever he needed out of like 1994, like computer chips and stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a little far fetched, but okay. So Loki promises Mobius that it will all make sense. It's kind of like he did with Sylvie in that other episodes. He's like, trust me, this will make sense. So Mobius is hesitant to help, but Loki shows him that he can bring him back exactly where they are at any point in time because like now they're looking at themselves having a conversation that they had just like 5 minutes earlier. So he's showing him, hey, we're traveling in time, so I can bring you right back here. He is still hesitant, but Loki explains how his kids are in danger if he doesn't help, because there will be nothing left. So then he also visits B-15 and Casey, but they just kind of skip over whatever conversations he had with them, and we assume everything went to plan. And so now they all meet back at OB's workshop. So B-15 asks if this is everyone, and Loki says, no, there is one more. So, okay, I thought this was a little bit weird. So Sylvie comes out of the McDonald's, and she has like a bag of fast food and a drink that she puts on the back of her truck as she's like opening her door. And then Loki appears behind her. But we see like her McDonald's food like disappear like into the ether. So I'm like, okay, if that's like an indication that her universe is like disappearing, why just her food?
Yeah, that's true.
Like, I thought that was a little weird. And also, like, you would have thought she would have maybe like noticed that and been like, wait, what happened to my stuff? I don't know. It just seemed a little weird. So Loki is surprised to find out that Sylvie, unlike the others, retained her memories of everything that happened.
Is there an explanation for that?
I don't think so. Maybe it's because she's a
God.
variant of his. Yeah, she's a Loki variant, so I don't know. Maybe her mind is different than human minds.
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't think they ever really say why, but she does. So at that moment, Loki has another one of his glitches, time slips, and Sylvie says she's going to buy him a drink. So they go to a bar because it's like there's no time to waste. Okay, let's go to a bar. So they go to the bar, and Loki and Sylvie have a debate about whether the variant should be able to return to the TVA if they want. Because Loki's like, hey, listen, Mobius, like, before, said he loved the TVA and it was the only life he knew. And, she was like, basically like saying, yeah, and that's not fair. He's got this other life. And he's like, well, now if we explain to him that, hey, you got either life and you can choose, like, shouldn't we let them choose?
Yeah,
and
that's
like,
true.
they have this whole debate. She doesn't think they should, and he does. So Loki says he can't give them that choice without Sylvie's help and calls her selfish for walking away from the situation. Sylvie says she wants a life of her own and asks Loki what he wants. He says he wants to stop He Who Remains, but she says, no, that's not what you really want. And so finally she gets him to admit that what he really wants is his friends back and not to be alone. So she says that makes them both selfish. She says his friends are back where they belong and that he needs to write his own story now. So Loki appears back at Obi's workshop and he tells the team, that's it. You should just go back home. So now we get a scene where Sylvie shows up at her local record store. And the guy that owns the place gives her a record. So she goes and she's like, chilling out and listening to it on headphones. But then that world, her world, starts to spaghetti out and disappear. You know what I thought was weird, though? There's like, because it like freezes, looks like it freezes time for a moment. And it shows like that guy like pouring coffee like directly on the countertop.
Yeah.
I'm like, what's going on there?
Yeah, he just kept pouring it, it seemed like. It went for a while.
Well, it seemed like it was like put it in slow motion, but I'm like, okay, like even if it's like slowing down time or whatever, like why wasn't he pouring it into a cup or something? Why was he like,
yeah,
or did the cup
maybe
disappear?
the cup disappeared. I'm guessing that's what happened.
Okay, it was unclear. It was very unclear. But yeah, her world starts to spaghetti out and disappears. And like, that guy yells at her and like she takes off the headphones, but then that guy like, spaghetti's out.
Yeah, he tries to reach her, but he can't.
So as things are all getting destroyed, she escapes through a time door. So she shows up at Obi's workshop, and like they're like, okay, we got to enact our plan. But before they can enact the plan, the whole team starts the spaghetti. Casey, B-15, Mobius, and eventually Sylvie.
So like, how does she get to the TVA? Like, does she have a temp pad still?
She must, because as her world was like spaghetting out, she opened the time door behind her, so she has to have a temp pad. I was wondering what she was going to do. I'm like, can she just use her magic? But then no, the door opened, so I'm like, oh, she has a temp pad. Okay. So then Loki learns to control his time slipping, and he goes back to that moment right before the team spaghettied and disappeared. Loki says the key to controlling his time slipping is actually a who rather than a why. And he says he can rewrite the story. So then he time slipped once more back to the TVA right next to OB. I guess presumably like, before the loom exploded. So question, and that's the end of the episode. So AJ, question, who do you think he's referencing there when he says it's a who? Do you think that just means like maybe he was thinking of Sylvie, or maybe it has to do with He Who Remains, or like...
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm really clueless about that too. Because Sylvie, he's already like had her on the team. Like why would he have to go back and talk to her? Maybe it's Victor Timely.
Well, it seems like, the whole thing of like he's focusing on some. I didn't know whether it's like he like focusing on somebody and that lets him control the time slips, or I guess it's something we'll find out in the next episode. But I was just like, I don't really know.
Yeah, I have no clue.
So going into the final episode, my thing is like, I mean, we're back to they need to fix the loom.
Yeah.
So that thread's still going. I do kind of wonder what they're going to do. Because, I mean, well, I guess if he's going back in time, you figure Victor Timely's alive again, right?
Yeah, I mean, for that time period, yeah, he's still alive there. He's about to go out, right? Like, onto the thing.
So maybe Loki can just, since he can control his time slipping, he can very quickly, like, go out in the radiation and like, do what he needs to do and time slip back, you think?
It's got to be harder than that. It's got to be something else.
My thing is like, do you think they're going to take the whole episode to fix the loom, or do you think they're going to fix it relatively quickly and have a,
I mean, it makes me wonder about Renslayer too. Like, is she going to come back and then they have to deal with her again at the end of the episode or something? I don't know. Like, are they going to fix it like a little bit like towards the beginning of the episode and then like have to deal with Renslayer? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you would think that, Renslayer would.
Oh, but they did take care of her, right? Like they sent her back to the end of time in that last.
Well, no, the last thing we saw of her was it looked like that Bragg guy had like erased her with the time stick.
Oh, okay, all right. So she's gone. All right.
Well,
for now,
I'm guessing since he's going back in time, they're gonna, bring her back.
Yeah. So maybe that's maybe that's the final battle they have in this season.
Big question is, do you think there'll be a Loki season 3? I mean, I would be all for it, but
I hope so. I mean, there's still so much to explore with Kang. I know they're talking about replacing Jonathan Majors, but they could replace him with somebody else who's still Kang. I want to see if he goes bad or what. There's still a lot to see there, like what happens with this guy, Victor Timely, and what he becomes.
I gotta say, there was an article that came out recently, in the past couple days or whatever, and it detailed like, certain like problems going on with Marvel. And one of the things it said was that like apparently season 2 of Loki has like 36% less viewership than the first season of Loki, which to me is a bummer because I thought Loki season 1 was great, and I think Loki season 2 so far has been great.
Yeah,
I'm like, I hear a lot of people complaining about Marvel, but I'm like, then this is the show you should be watching.
Exactly. Yeah,
I think this is like
I think
heads and tails their best show.
They must have given themselves like a really bad rap with those last few shows, and people just started, getting away from it. A Secret Invasion was not a good lead up to this show.
That's true.
Before that, we saw some Hawkeye and other stuff. It was just not great.
Ever since this, like, the MCU took off, people have been talking about, like, is there superhero fatigue? And, like, I really don't think there was. But now with all the MCU shows and, also DC shows and stuff, I'm beginning to wonder, like, maybe we are getting to a point where there's some superhero fatigue for people.
I could see that. I could definitely see that. Yeah. I used to watch a lot more like comic book channels, but I've heard so many comics. I've seen so many comics. I'm kind of like, I mean, now they're kind of like scraping the bottom of the barrel with these stories anyway. So I don't know. I mean, I know they're always writing new ones, but there's a little bit of fatigue.
Oh, I mean, with comic books, it's always cyclical where there's always some that are good and some that are just kind of bland and samey,
Yeah.
So those things are always kind of going in cycles. But like, yeah, I got to say, I wish more people were watching this show. I think it's worth everybody's time. I think it's been very good. Now watch the last episode. It'll be terrible. And I'll be like, whoa, what? I'm leading people astray.
Fingers crossed it's not.
But, man, I got to say, I'm still like, I'm probably still like, high on this show, like probably like an 8.5 out of 10, or
yeah, I'd sit there like 8 to 8.5.
Yeah, I'm digging it. Some other things in that news article. So I guess right now, I think if he's not already, that Jonathan Majors trial is happening soon.
Mm.
And there was that article said that Marvel is, still contemplating what to do depending on how that turns out, whether they'll recast him or even like some of them were saying like, oh, maybe we'll just change focus to Doctor Doom and kind of like curtail the Kang storyline.
I do not like that idea.
I don't either because I'm like, you've already put this much into it, like, and you've already got
the interest in the character.
Yeah, and I'm like, yeah, it kind of sucks if you have to replace him, but I would be more for replacing him than just like
switching over to Doom. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I do hope that Major stays on. I thought, that first episode we saw him in, the acting was a little bit like, he was definitely chewing the scenery.
Right.
But then after seeing more and more of it, I was like, okay, he's still got it, so I do hope they just stay with him. But, if worst comes to worst, they replace him. Stick with Kang, like don't get rid of the character. Don't get rid of that guy. No, there's so much potential.
Yeah, agreed. And also I think, one of the things that made Infinity War and Endgame so good is the long-term storytelling that they did.
Yeah.
They seeded Thanos for a long time, then they built him up. And, they kind of have another, it's not going to take as many years as Thanos, but, they have this roadmap up to that Kang Dynasty movie.
Yeah.
And I'm like, stay on that path. Like, you got plans. Mm-hmm. It's going to pay off with that long-term storytelling.
Exactly. They're building up the story, and it's working.
Yeah. And so, yeah, fork in the road if you have to replace him. But I think people are understanding of that. Look, I mean, I'm sure there were people that didn't like when they recast Don Cheadle as Rhodey, but now this far into it, like, who gives a shit?
Yeah.
It's like whatever. People are used to him, and it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, the Hulk got recast like twice.
Yeah, that's true. Edward Norton to Mark Ruffalo, and like the guy that played Thunderbolt Ross passed away, and so now Harrison Ford's going to be Thunderbolt Ross in the Thunderbolts movie. Mm-hmm. So things just happen, unfortunately. But yeah, I'm definitely in the camp that thinks they should stick with Kang no matter what.
Yeah, agreed.
Another thing in that article, not something I care too much about. Apparently, that Blade movie is in development hell, and they basically are at like a page 1 rewrite. They said,
"Geez, is the original Blade going to be much better than this new Blade that they're trying to come out with?"
My thing is, I don't really care about vampire stuff. Blade's not a character I've ever cared about. So if they scrapped him altogether, I wouldn't really care. I will say Mahershala Ali, like, he's a good actor. So if they're going to do a Blade movie, like,
he's the guy to go.
He's the guy to do it. Yeah. But at the same time, I'm like, I'm just not invested in the Blade character and having vampires in the MCU.
Yeah, vampires seem so small compared to what we've already seen, like throughout, everything. But then again, we liked Moon Knight, so I mean, if they do it right, it could be great. Who knows?
And I just think there's like, I don't know, much more interesting characters in the MCU other than Blade that, I'd be more interested in. But hey, if they're gonna do it, that's fine. But
man, I would love. I know it's not coming up on the horizon anytime soon, but I would love for Marvel to do a King in Black. You
really like that story.
I really liked King in Black.
The only problem there is the whole Sony owning Venom thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah. They couldn't do King in Black.
I mean, they would have to work out a deal like they did with the.
No, Tom Holland. Like they just don't have the skills to do King in Black.
Oh, Sony.
Yeah.
Yes. I would not want Sony to do it on their own.
No.
But if they could make out a long-term agreement between Marvel and Sony,
like with Spider-Man,
then I would be open to it.
Yeah.
But God, Sony, stop making movies.
Yeah.
At least superhero.
Make more PlayStations, make less movies.
Yes. Yes. I really want to play Spider-Man 2, but I'm going to wait for it to go on sale. I don't need to be an early
I've
adopter.
heard good things about, great things about.
Oh, those games are awesome. I played both the first one and the Miles Morales one, and those games are great.
Okay.
You should definitely play those. They're so fun. Yeah. And also, what I like open world games, and what I like about those ones is they're not like a terrible, like, they respect your time. You can do everything in them without having to dedicate your life to them.
Okay. Great.
And so, yeah, those games are awesome. So much fun. I was trying to think if there was more Marvel news. I think that's about it. I mean,
they were talking about trying to bring back the original cast from the Avengers in some future.
Oh, that was the other thing. Yeah, that reeks of desperation.
Yeah,
I don't like that at all.
You can tell the execs are just like, how do we get more money in our pockets? Oh my God, just make a quality product, man.
Yeah, I don't even like that they were considering that, to be honest.
Yeah, that is just, it ended the way it ended. It was great the way it ended. Everybody's satisfied. Don't desecrate that, man.
And like, listen, I get like, yeah, there is a multiverse, so they can like say like, oh, we're just bringing back a different version of those characters with the same actors, but I don't like that. It reeks of desperation. Have confidence in the new cast.
Yeah. Build
them great stories, and people will watch them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't like that story. I'm hoping it wasn't like a serious consideration, but who knows, man. Execs, they just see like, oh, this guy made a movie that made so much money, and if we just put them back in it, we'll make so much money.
Yeah, without thinking about all the little intricate stuff that went into, like, why that movie was successful.
Right. Yeah, I think the next couple of years, especially once the new DC stuff pops off, I think the superhero space is going to be interesting.
Yeah.
In movies and television, for sure. I'm wondering, like, what they're going to, because Marvel is like they haven't announced like a Moon Knight season 2 or anything. So like,
yeah, they're taking forever to come out with like the next season of every show.
Well, that's what I'm wondering is like, are they just going to start like filtering these characters into different shows and movies, or instead of doing like multiple seasons?
I hope they do Daredevil right. I hope they give him multiple seasons.
Yeah, that's the one I got my fingers crossed the most for is Daredevil.
Yeah. I was glad to hear that they're going back and reshooting it. It's great. Yes. That means they're taking it seriously. Because the Netflix Daredevil was great.
Yeah, it was really good.
And you're Marvel. You should be able to like put something comparable to that out there, if you give it due diligence. And hopefully that's what they're doing now. So.
Oh, one thing I did find interesting is that Echo Show is rated TVMA.
Oh,
so
wow.
it's
bloody,
more violent, more adult than the other Disney Plus series they've had so far. So
that could be interesting.
Yeah, I find that a little interesting. I like them experimenting with different tones.
Yeah. People didn't like Multiverse of Madness, but I actually appreciated the horror aspect of it. It was good, And I like the movie overall, actually. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't revisited Multiverse of Madness yet. I remember, but yeah, I liked it decently, and I like that aspect of it. There was definitely some cool visual things in it, like when he makes like the thing out of all the dead bodies.
Yeah.
Like that. It was pretty cool.
Very Sam Raimi, it was fun.
Definitely. Yeah, I got to say, like, some like directors of Marvel movies, say that they're so, the way they're produced, it's hard to get your stamp put on them. But I would say Sam Raimi definitely like put his stamp on that movie, and you could tell, oh yeah, that looks like a Raimi thing,
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate that. And James Gunn too, he also puts his stamp on his movies.
That's true. Yeah, the Guardians movies felt distinct. I would say like Thor Ragnarok with Taika Waititi felt distinct.
Yeah. I don't think he's coming back for the next one, though. I think they're going like a different direction. I get why,
Yeah, Love and Thunder, like some people straight up hated that movie. Yeah. I thought it was I had some issues with
it. It was a
but
very kid-friendly movie, and I don't mind kid-friendly, but it was too kid-friendly, like...
It almost seemed like it... Well, like I've complained about some Marvel movies that go for the joke too much.
Yeah.
I think it did that, and I think a lot of times in that movie, the humor fell flat.
And they just didn't take anything seriously.
Yeah, I thought, Ragnarok had a lot of jokes in it, but I thought it was more well-balanced tonally than Love and Thunder.
Yeah.
But you don't get that Russell Crowe Zeus accent.
Racist ass Zeus. Like, that accent was, I don't know. I don't think Greek people would appreciate. I didn't hear about it, but
I recently listened to they did a How Did This Get Made on the Pope's Exorcist. And apparently he has like a similar accent.
Oh
in
no!
That movie.
Why is he going after these people?
Although I'm guessing the Pope's Exorcist, it was supposed to be more of a Italian accent, but probably sounded similar,
Oh man, Russell Crowe was like, they're all the same.
Yeah, that accent was very over the top. Yeah. I remember thinking, holy cow.
Yeah, you just kind of hold your breath like, is he allowed to do that?
Is this racist against Greeks? Man. Oh, yeah, I forgot in the post-credit scenes of that they introduced Hercules as a character as well.
Oh, right, yeah.
When's Hercules going to show up?
Right. I hope we do see him in the next movie. He should be in the next movie. He's supposed to kill Thor.
He probably will be.
Yeah.
Thor 5. Yeah, like Taika Waititi, I think he is talented, but yeah, I would like them to move away to a different director for Thor, I think.
Yeah.
I would like don't go all the way back and like strip all the humor, because Chris Hemsworth like can be funny.
But even he himself said that he wants Thor not to be like as goofy and stuff.
Right. Yeah, there's like, I feel like there's a sweet balance between like funny and goofy.
Yeah, because the comic book Thor is like no fun. He's just so Asgard, this and that. Like he's just so straight.
Yeah, he's definitely more stoic.
Yeah, and that's just, I don't know. I appreciate somebody more colorful, and I do appreciate the humor from Ragnarok.
I'm almost surprised that the comics haven't tried to make the Thor of the comics seem more like Chris Hemsworth. Because that happens sometimes. Like, you'll notice that certain comic book characters like end up feeling more like their counterparts in the movies, especially if they're more successful in the movies.
Yeah.
But there have been some good Thor comics, but yeah, he still doesn't seem like Chris Hemsworth, like more light-hearted Thor, exactly.
Right.
Man, I gotta say, Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man is so much better than comic book Iron Man. I've always felt like comic book Iron Man, I don't know, he doesn't have any super definitive must-read stories, in my opinion.
Okay. I don't know. I haven't seen a lot of stories about Iron Man. He's always a part of the ensemble cast or something, but I haven't seen much of his own solo stories.
I mean, he has one storyline from probably the 80s called Demon in a Bottle, which is about him battling alcoholism a little bit. But I've read that story, and it barely scratches the surface of that kind of thing, because it's still for, written kind of for kids. And I'm like, boy, if this is his big storyline, I'm like, that's not saying much about the Iron Man comic books.
Yeah, his battle with alcoholism, folks. That's what this comic is about.
I mean, I've read some other Iron Man comics that are better than that.
Okay.
But it's still I don't know, they're missing something. They don't have that Robert Downey Jr. pizzazz to them,
Yeah.
I'm like, if any comics should start aping the movies more, it's the Iron Man comics.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Just straight up. Yeah, I don't know if I have much more to add other than just everybody watch Loki.
Are there any DC projects coming up anytime soon?
What I mean, so I just saw an article that, and this is something I already knew, in 2024, the final season of Superman and Lois will air, which I'm actually excited about. I've actually really enjoyed that show. I recommend Superman and Lois to everybody. In fact, as far as like the CW shows go, that's got to be one of the better ones.
Okay.
It's up there. But I think the final season, I think, is only going to be like 10 episodes.
Right.
Oh, also, Doom Patrol, the final episodes are airing now.
Okay.
It's still like week to week. They're not all out. I think I'm behind one episode, but I've been enjoying those as well. That's a great show. You watched Doom Patrol?
I only watched like part of the first season. I think I canceled HBO Max or something like that.
Well, if you ever go back to it, I recommend it. It's good. I will say I finished. I took a long break from it because it was kind of boring me, but you know me, I made that deal with the devil where I got to watch all these DC shows.
Oh man, that's brutal. You're torturing yourself.
I finished that Titans show, and like the thing in that show that frustrates me is like the first 2 seasons, they're like decent.
Okay.
Like they're not perfect, but they're totally watchable, have some decent stuff in them. Season 3 was terrible. Season 4 I don't think was as bad as season 3, but it's still too long, dull in spots, didn't really like it.
Okay.
But I'm done with that show. It's finished. I finished the whole thing.
Man, you are dedicated. Did you finish the whole Flash series too, right?
Yes.
Man, it was so grueling trying to watch up to season 6 for me. I was like, oh man, I couldn't do it anymore. And Supergirl, oh my god.
The final season of Supergirl almost broke me. That was so terrible. Which some of the first seasons of Supergirl I actually kind of liked.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty strong in the beginning. But man, that last season took me a while to get through. That was a doozy.
Oh, yeah, that was bad. I quit after like the first 3 seasons, I think. How many seasons were there?
There was, I think, 5.
Okay, yeah.
5 or 6.
The 3rd season was tough for me, so yeah.
It only got worse from there. Yeah, I do feel like I should win a medal for watching all of Supergirl. The Flash, I gotta say, I still have a soft spot for the Flash. The first 2 seasons are awesome.
So good.
Eventually, it did get pretty dicey. There's a few seasons as it goes along that aren't so good. But I don't know. I still managed every season to find an episode or 2 that I liked. So.
Man, I was like that scene where Harrison Wells kills Cisco Ramon.
Yeah,
that was such a good scene. Such a good episode.
Yeah, man. Those first 2 seasons of The Flash are fantastic.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what I should get a medal for also is making it through all of Arrow. Because Arrow is so much worse than The Flash.
I just hated the flashbacks. I know like they're intricate to the story, but I always hated the flashbacks in that show.
It's one if they would have just done it for 1 season or maybe 2 seasons, but no, they like kept going back and back. I'm like, why? Why do you insist on doing this over and over again? That's a show that like some people love. Or they'll be like, oh, the first couple seasons at least are fantastic. I'm like, I never really enjoyed that show. For some reason, I had this gambler's fallacy where I'm like, gotta do it. But that show was never very good.
I only got into it because of The Flash. Like, I was like, okay, well, I'll check it out because of this show. But, oh, man, it was not ever as good as The Flash was in the first 2 seasons.
That show's funny though because it has scenes where like they'll be like, you know how sometimes like he'll be close to someone so he actually like starts hitting him instead of like shooting arrow, he'll like actually use his bow as a weapon and like hit guys with it. And I swear to God, there was scenes where they're just like, just move it real fast and we'll fix it in post. And it just, looks like he's doing nothing, like just like swinging it all fast, and the other guy's like reacting to it, and like selling it. But it's like,
how much could a bow hurt you? It's like
that's the other thing. It seems like a terrible hand-to-hand weapon.
It would just bounce off people.
Yeah. So yeah, some of the action in that show was god awful. Man, I gotta say though, there's some of those CW shows that only lasted a season before getting canceled, and I'm like, boy, I don't know. I know I made this deal with the devil, but those ones are hard to even start.
I mean, if they got canceled after one season, they must have been really bad.
There's that one that I don't even know how it got greenlit.
Gotham Knights.
Gotham Knights.
Yeah.
I see that on there, and I'm like, boy. Ugh, maybe the devil's just gonna have to kill me.
I never saw an episode, but I heard so much about it.
I know it's supposed to be terrible.
Yeah, they were just greenlighting anything at that point.
There's also one called Naomi that only lasted one season.
Okay. Who's I don't know who Naomi is.
Well, the crazy thing, so she's a character in the comics. Made Brian Michael Bendis, who's a famous comic book writer, invented her. But the thing is, she's only been in the comics for like maybe 5 years, and not like prominently either. Mm-hmm. Like he wrote her in like the series he did, and then I think for a while she did a little bit of stuff in like the Justice League book, but she's not like this character that just took off and like, oh, everybody loves Naomi. So I was like, really, you're giving like this character their own show? And then it only lasted a season.
Yeah, there you go.
It just seemed like a weird choice to greenlight.
Yeah, I mean, DC is making a ton of their content, I guess. Like, they've gotten shows for all their big characters, and they have also got these like other Teen Titans and this and that. So they've got like a lot of content for their characters.
They do, yeah.
Marvel is trying to do that, and they're doing it poor. I guess they're doing the DC way. 'Cause, I mean, now hopefully they get their shit together. But up until now, Secret Invasion. How many shows have they bombed on in a row? What was that? Secret Invasion, Loki, not Loki. It's Hawkeye, Miss Marvel, She-Hulk, Secret Invasion. She-Hulk was bad. Yeah,
and like, I know we thought Moon Knight was okay, but I've seen a lot of people online hated Moon Knight.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So it's all subject. But then again, like I saw some people like loving all those ones we don't like. I've seen people say they loved Hawkeye and Miss Marvel and She-Hulk, so it's like I
feel like we got gaslit with Miss Marvel because they were saying it was like the highest rated show out of all of them at some point. Like I find that hard to believe.
Oh, that's another thing in one of the recent articles that came out about Marvel is like, well, I think around the time they talked about, redoing Daredevil, is like a lot of these shows, like writers like were fired like late into the thing and replaced like on these shows, and it just sounded like a mess. And so now I'm like, well, that makes sense with what we saw in some of those shows where we complained about the writing. Yeah, it makes sense that probably like there wasn't a consistent vision, and it was just a hodgepodge of different people and different ideas.
I mean, it must be really hard to find good writers, like people who know the stuff and how to like portray it in a movie.
Well, I think they didn't understand the importance of having like a showrunner, like a dedicated showrunner.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I heard about that.
And so I think they learned that lesson the hard way. And so, hopefully.
Yeah, really helter-skelter approach to making shows there.
Also, most shows will have a pilot before they greenlight, and they weren't doing that, but now apparently they are. Okay. So, like, the hope is that'll lead to a higher degree of quality. Okay. Being like, oh, maybe we shouldn't greenlight this, that type of thing.
Obviously, they should do that, yeah.
Yeah. But, apparently they weren't doing that, and so... But it makes you wonder, like, would some of these shows we don't like, have not been greenlight if they had a pilot, Or would they been like, okay, you got to redo this, that type of thing, maybe?
I mean, I know for sure Secret Invasion could have been done a lot better. Like,
It apparently had a lot of production issues. That's why it's costed way more than it should have.
Yeah, I heard. Like, I think you told me that they were reshooting scenes that were pointless to reshoot.
Exactly. Yeah.
My gosh.
Yeah.
Millions of dollars.
Yeah. Millions of dollars wasted, man.
Yeah.
Well, AJ, you got anything to add before we wrap this bad boy up?
Man, just looking forward to the next episode. This one was kind of like nobody had control of anything. I don't know how they're going to go from here. I mean, he's still time slipping, so it makes me think, like, is he going to be able to stay in this time period long enough to change anything? But let's see.
Well, that's the thing. Because the whole episode 1 was that whole thing that they had to go through to, stop him from time slipping. And then, like you said, like, they don't really explain it, but, oh, now he's just time slipping again.
Exactly, yeah. Huh.
And nobody else time slips besides him.
Yeah, he's the only one.
So there's definitely like it happens in every show where sometimes there's just things that they don't explain, and maybe it's better that they don't, that kind of thing. But
yeah, maybe whatever technology or whatever they're using to stop him from time slipping, like, was destroyed as everything else was destroyed.
That could be, yeah. Yeah, because it did, like, whatever stopped him, like, didn't they, like, it had to do with the loom, like, Mobius went out with that device or what, so maybe if that was compromised, it would cause him to time slip again.
Yeah.
I guess that's as good an explanation as anything. But yeah, I am curious how it all wraps up. And then I forget exactly when the Marvels comes out, but we'll have to
next month. I'm not sure.
This month sometime.
This month? Oh,
I want to say it's coming up in a week or two. It actually might be a week from today, I'm thinking.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll have those reviews, and then I guess we'll be back to kind of normal shows again for a while.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if there's any big things coming out the rest of this year. Well, except Aquaman 2.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. So when is that coming out? Do you know?
Around Christmas, I think.
Jeez.
Merry Christmas.
I don't know who's going to go watch that movie. We are, but it's because we have to.
Sometimes I hate this job.
I don't even want to watch the Marvels, but I mean, we got to do what we got to do.
The Marvels I'm okay with. I like the first Captain Marvel movie.
Yeah.
I think it'll be good enough.
Yeah.
I definitely think it'll be mid-tier, but I don't think it'll be terrible.
Fear it's going to be corny and lame just because, there's a kid character and, yeah.
It probably will be corny.
Yeah.
I hope there's not any. I just hope it's not like I expect there to be a degree to be like kind of a feminist message. I just hope it's not eye rolling.
Yeah, like that scene from Endgame when all the women like somehow met up and like it was so weird and so.
Yeah, actually, that scene made me wonder if they were going to do like an A-Force, like all women's team type of movie eventually.
Yeah, why though? Why would they do that? I mean, are the men on the team sexually harassing the women? Like, is that what's happening? They have to like form their own separate team?
That would be a ballsy storyline.
I know.
Like, oh man, we're getting away from Mr. Hansy, Captain Hansy. All right. Well, I think that'll do it. So I hope everybody will tune in next week for our review of the Loki finale. But if you will, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. And also you can subscribe in audio form on your podcast catcher of choice. Leave us thumbs up, positive reviews. You can follow me on Twitter/X at Zach Jones Live. That's ZachJonesLive. And that's going to do it for all of our shenanigans and poppycock this week. Please, please, please tune in again next week. Bye, guys.
Take care.